Right, I think it's 5 minutes from the time that we had planned. So maybe if you're good with us getting going, I want to welcome everyone that's joined the call. I know that this is also being recorded and will be posted through the AIA YouTube account. I understand also that every attendant will be getting a PDF copy of this presentation. And hopefully we'll be able to reach out more people than the ones that are actually joining the call. My name is Luis Herrera. I am a licensed architect in El Salvador, and I'm a licensed architect in the state of Texas too. I'm originally from El Salvador. I went to school in the Universidad Dr. Jose Matias Delgado in El Salvador, and I came to Houston about 7 years ago. I'm gonna introduce the other two presenters that are joining today. One is Cesar Dominguez. He's with Cuadro Architects, and he is a sole practitioner. He's an architect licensed in Mexico and licensed in the state of Texas as well. He's from Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León. I also have Mario Moran. He's also a licensed architect in Mexico and in pursuing licensure in the state of Texas. He's from Universidad San Luis Potosí, Universidad Autónoma de San Luis Potosí. So, our topic today has to do with eligibility to licensure in the United States, and specifically for foreign or international architects that have gone to school, to architecture school abroad, and that are pursuing or in the process of pursuing licensure in the United States. This process is known for being intricate, and sadly, it's also known for having little information out there. We know that NCARB is doing a lot of great work trying to promote licensure and also to provide a path to foreign architects to be able to do so. Now, what we intend to do with this presentation is also make this information available to our Latino community, not only in Houston, but in general. Make it available and also clear and easy to follow. So without further ado, I'm gonna let Cesar take over our next couple slides. Cesar.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So pretty much just to say a little bit more, the whole purpose of this, we're trying to make it, it's not very formal format that we're using. So at the end, we're going to have the QA, probably Luis is going to say that later. We're just going to go a little bit, just what we're going to be talking about is just about our own personal experience. So things change, and just make sure later on you just check all the NCARB websites and anything else that you might need to go back and verify that everything is current, everything that I'm, especially me, that I'm about to say. So the whole purpose of this presentation is just to help other architects that are coming from other parts of the world, coming to the US, trying to get their license. And like Luis was saying, I mean, we had a hard time when we're trying to get our own license, that there's not a lot enough information out there. So we're just trying to share our own experience and how we did it. So at least it can be a little bit easier for everybody else to achieve this goal. One of the first steps is that we need to you are going to have to get, like we did, get the NCARB certification. So based on this, I mean, just make some sort of a clarification. One of the most common words that we're going to be managing or items that we're going to be saying, and so everything's clear about what is being required. One of the things is can you go back to the previous? There you go. Like credentials. I mean, the credentials here in the U.S., like from especially for us from Mexico. I mean, in Mexico, we get once we get out of college, we pretty much just go and do some paperwork and get our license. Here in the U.S., a little bit different. So we need to become NCARB certified first, so we can go then and pursue a license in each and every state. So each and every state is going to issue a license, but everything needs to be certified first by NCARB. And like saying jurisdiction is pretty much in every state of the U.S. Can you go back a little bit? Back. There you go. And then we talk about the NCARB certificate. That's pretty much the first step that we all need to take. Then NCARB is going to give you a record. You're going to have to pay pretty much every year just to keep your record current. Then you go with registration license. That's pretty much for every state that you would like to practice architecture. Pretty much once you're NCARB, I mean, NCARB has the reciprocity, so you can be licensed as well, Mexico, US, and Canada. Can you go to the next one? So pretty much just getting this, being licensed in the US, I mean, is very important. First of all, I mean, you cannot name yourself or call yourself an architect unless you are licensed. Then we're repeating pretty much the same. You're gonna have to get a license for each and every state that you want to practice. And NCARB is the entity that is gonna be sending your records to each and every state so you can get your license. Most of the states, as far as I know, is just reciprocal. So it's just a matter of just like sending the NCARB will send the document, you'll pay a fee with the state you're gonna get licensed, and you're pretty much done and ready to go. Except for California, you need to get an extra exam because they have earthquakes. So something is gonna be an exam related to it. In Florida, as far as I know, is related to hurricanes. So all the other state is pretty much just going to be a reciprocal. It's just pretty much just transferring documents and paying a fee. NCARB, pretty much NCARB is the only entity in the US that regulates the architects. So if in order to get a license, you first need to go to NCARB. That's why we're mentioning the first step is get with NCARB. They're going to tell you pretty much what steps you need to take to be NCARB certified. And then once you're pretty much NCARB certified, I mean, you're pretty much good to go. License. Like I mentioned before, license first. I mean, you need to call yourself an architect. You need to be actually a licensed architect. Based on NCARB in all the states, I mean, they want everybody to be licensed. I mean, once you get your license, you're pretty much just telling everybody else that you have complied with all the strict regulations, exams, and that you are capable to actually design projects where the health, safety, and welfare are being taken care of. So this pretty much try to regulate not everybody just practicing architecture. I mean, you need to comply and have the knowledge to actually practice architecture. That's why there is a little bit more stringent when it comes to this point. Skills, I mean, sort of kind of the same. I mean, once to get your license, there's some skills that you need to comply with. I mean, NCARB takes care of the education. They're going to take care of the experience and as well as the examination, which Luis or Mario are going to talk about a little bit more later. having your license as well is very important. I mean, it's going to open a lot of new doors. It's going to let you grow within a firm you're working for, starting your own firm as well. And financially, it's more profitable as well. So there's all good things that can happen once you get your license, and pretty much the sky is the limit.
Thank you, Cesar. I'm gonna take over, talk a little bit about the getting license process. And it's not gonna be a little bit about it. Actually, that's what the presentation is about. We talk about licensure in the terms of formula. I like to talk about it in the terms of a formula. L equals E plus E plus E. And L stands for licensure, E stands for eligibility, experience, and examination. So the eligibility component is the one we'll be focusing on today. There are 3 ways of earning eligibility. One is the foreign architect path that NCARB makes available for foreign educator or foreign licensed architects. The other one is ESA, which we'll talk about it later on. And finally, the standard path, which is a foreign architect that actually went to school in a accredited program in the United States or any of the other jurisdictions that NCARB recognizes. So that last one, the third one, the standard path, is essentially the one that everyone in the States follow. But again, it's the path to eligibility to take the exams and to start reporting experience hours. So as I said, the first one is the foreign architect path. Step 1 would be for the applicant to determine what is my category. Am I a foreign architect that's going to go through the foreign architect path? Am I going to go through ESA, or am I going to go through the standard path? So speaking of the foreign architect path, for this applicants, the path to licensure in the States varies in between people that are licensed in their own or the original country where they went to school at, or if they're just educated in this school. So that makes a difference, and I'll let you know what the difference is later on. But if you want to know if you're a licensed applicant, it's essentially if you currently hold the license to practice architecture in a country outside the States, if your foreign license has not expired, and finally, if you haven't been object of a disciplinary action by the foreign license authority. Those are the 3 items that would qualify you as a foreign licensed applicant. If you don't hold any of those, if you don't hold any license at all, then you have to look at your path as a foreign educated applicant. If Mario, you want to take over the second applicant category, ESA?
I was mute. It happens all the time with a Zoom call. Hello, everyone that is in the call. I'm Mario, and as Luis introduced me, I'm pursuing my license here in Texas. So before I start diving into this process, I want to really express my admiration of everyone in this call to take the step and try to go beyond or going outside of your comfort zone, because it takes a lot of effort to accomplish this licensure path. And it's a combination of many requirements. And right now, as Luis mentioned, everyone who wants to get licensed in the United States needs to go through these steps. And it's very daunting and scary to come from a foreign country and find out that your license might not be valid, or it might be tricky to call yourself an architect regardless, or if you come from your country and you just call yourself an architect. So I started looking around how to become an architect here in Texas, and while looking around, I noticed that there are many ways to validate the educational requirement. And since I didn't study in a school for that offer a National Architectural Accrediting Board program, which is the NAB, I need to find out how to navigate that requirement to fulfill. And I found out there's something called the ISA, which is an evaluation of your program or your degree, and they will say or check your credentials and see if the program you study is similar or has the same yeah, it's a similar program to the ones that are, it's a NAB one. And to do that, you just have to send an email, call them, and just be out there and try to contact anyone from the NCARB, from the NAB, from any, or even from your own country, the institutions that they regulate that. So going back about my case, I know every case is different, so I just want to share my experience and see if that will help you out there to follow or find out what's best for you. So what I did is that I went to the ISA, and how do I change the slide? Oh, there it is. So I started looking at some of the part of the website for the ISA, and find out that when it comes to how much it'll cost, it was noted that it's something called the Canberra Accord, and I started looking about that and realized that it might be the case of your program that is part of this Canberra Accord, which is an international agreement among different universities and architectural programs, that it's very similar, the program around the globe, for what's validated as a NAB international certification. So the reason I saw that is because you saw that, if you notice, the fee is smaller than a regular ISA fee, but that's something that you need to go around and see what's the best path for you. So the next step I took, I went to the Canberra website, and they have so many resources, and you can see if your program or your school or your degree is part of that agreement. And by doing that, I was able to send my transcripts, my degree, to the ISA, and said my school is part of the Canberra Accord, so please evaluate it and let me know if I'm eligible to start taking the test or fill in my experience hours. And it was a whole process of sending emails back and forth, calling the office, but I just want to let you know that it's really possible. There are many paths for you to validate your degree or your program or your education requirement. So that's what it happened to me. I want to really mention that I needed to be really clear about that my program was actually part of the Canberra Accord. I think I even sent some snippets or screenshots of the list saying, hey, Universidad de San Luis Potosí in Mexico is part of the Canberra Accord, so please, if you're going to charge me for the ISA evaluation, please charge me the fee that you're showing on the website, which is half the price. So, as I said before, there are many ways that you can validate your educational requirement to start the license process.
Thank you, Mario. So I just want to add to the Canberra Accord bit, or to the ESA, if to the ESA option if possible. I'm just going to go back a little bit to this slide. So as you can see, you have the foreign architect path. As I said, if you're a licensed architect, this might be the best way to do it. If you're not, you're going to be required an ESA evaluation. And an ESA evaluation is conducted by NAB. NAB also puts this Canberra Accord out available to people that belong to or that went to school, to universities that have accredited their programs as a Canberra Accord member. So if that is the case, if you are not a licensed architect, you're educated abroad, the first thing you need to do is go and get an ESA evaluation. But before you engage in that path, check if your school's program has been accredited by the Canberra Accord, because that, like it shows here, will save you half of the fees. Because an ESA evaluation is $2,500, and if your school is member of the Canberra Accord, it will be half of that. Now, who are the members of the Canberra? What universities are part of the Canberra Accord? Work? The ones that we know of are universities in Canada, in Japan, in Korea, in Mexico, and some other places that the website is going to show you. But very important, when you download the list of universities that are in Mexico, if you go to the Canberra Accord website and you download the Mexico list of universities, at the bottom of that list, you will find the Universidad de San Carlos in Guatemala, and you're going to find the Universidad de Loja in Ecuador. So I would encourage people to dig deep and get very familiar with the Canberra Accord website and try to find either your university or your country, and also call your university. That maybe the Canberra Accord website's not updated and your university's program just got certified or got as a member of the Canberra Accord. So very important, because this slash in half, essentially slashes in half the fees that you would have to pay for the evaluation. There are people pursuing licensure that are engaged in working for a company that helps you pay for these fees. But there are also people, that is not everyone's case, right? There are also people that are having to bear with this cost, and it makes a huge difference. So the Canberra Accord website is on this presentation right here. As you can see, it's part of a NAB website, because this is a NAB program. And if your school is not certified by NAB, maybe Canberra Accord is an option. If those two options are gone, then you have to go on a full-on ESA, an ESA evaluation. Now, that said, we can talk about that third path, which is the standard path. Now, this presentation is made for foreign architects that want to get licensed in the States, so we can't overlook the foreign architects that went to school in the States or any of the jurisdictions that NCARB recognizes, and that have to follow the same path everyone else here in the States have to follow, which is earn an architecture degree from NAB, gain and document the required experience hours through the AXP, pass the AREs, meet the extra jurisdictional requirements, if any, because I mean, there might be things like a background check or things like proof of residents in the states. Each of the states have their very particular additional requirements. But NCARB has a tool for you to go in there and find out which are those states requirements, what requirements apply to each state. So they also make it very easy. And finally, have your NCARB record transmitted to the jurisdiction where you would like to be licensed. That is the standard path. There's not much to this. Essentially, if you go to an architecture school in the United States, someone will guide you or will at some point talk to you about the path to licensure once you get your degree. Now, we gone over step one, which was determining what type of applicant am I? Am I a foreign architect's path applicant because I'm licensed in my country? Am I an ESA applicant because I'm not licensed, but I went to school in another country, my country, or whatever you want to call it? If you went to school abroad and you're not licensed in that country, but you have your transcripts and you have your credentials, and you want them to be evaluated, or if you're going through the standard path. Now, we identified those three ways to gain eligibility, and now we're going to step two, getting eligible. The requirements to become eligible. Eligible for what, you might ask? Well, eligible to start taking the exams and eligible to start reporting experience hours that you are currently gaining or that you have gained in the past. Because we're going to talk about how AXP works. The first option we talked about was the foreign licensed applicant, the one going through the foreign architect's path, right? You're gonna need to confirm the jurisdiction. You want to go to your state board and find out what are the requirements besides examination and experience that you're gonna need to meet in order to get licensed. Then you're gonna go in and create an NCARB record. This is very intuitive once you go on the NCARB website. After that, you're gonna have to get an education verification form from the school, the architecture school you went to. This is an email that needs to be sent directly from the school you went to NCARB. You can't go in, get it, and then send it yourself. You have to get your architecture school abroad to be able to send this form. We'll talk about it a little later. And finally, your foreign registration verification. So the entity that regulates the practice of architecture in your country is going to have to also send an email with a form attached to it. That NCARB provides this form attached to it, an email directly to NCARB that states that you are an active licensed architect in the country you're from, that you are allowed by the laws and regulations of that country to work in any size project, and that you don't have any disciplinary action filed against you. I mean, that you're in good standing, so to say, that your license is active. Those two emails are key for you to get eligibility. It takes 60 days once you get those two institutions to send those two emails for you to get a response back from NCARB. That is pretty much the easiest, for me, less expensive way to become eligible. But if you happen to not hold a license in your country and you're going through the ESA route, you don't have to confirm jurisdiction, but you have to also create your NCARB record, and you have to complete the ESA foreign education evaluation. Now, you can do it two different ways. You can do it the traditional way, which would be paying $2,500, or you could do it through the Canberra code, which will save you half of that fee. Once you do that, you also have to wait about 60 days to get the evaluation. And once you've submitted all the information that ESA is going to require, you also have to wait about 60 days. And then another a waiting period from NCARB to determine your eligibility to take the exams and to start reporting your experience hours. Experience, as I said, that you are already gaining or that you have gained in the past by engaging in work for a licensed architect. I mentioned the credential verification form. This is the form that your architecture school, wherever it is in the world, is going to have to fill out and send directly from your school to NCARB. They are letting you send it via email, but you can also send it via, they can also send it through regular mail. This form is something that you can fill out if you want, and then send to your school for them to go over and verify that the information is in there. It's in there, it's accurate, but it's very important that this is signed by the architecture school authorities and it's sent directly to NCARB, and that is 100% in English language. So mine, whenever you're gonna be putting in the dates in there, know that English puts the months first and then the days. At least in El Salvador, it's the other way around. So that was a little, that took a little back and forth in between the institutions. Then you have the transcript request form. Oh, I apologize. This is the one for the university. The one that we're looking at, the credential verification form, this is to be filled out by the institution that regulates the practice of architecture. It's two very similar forms. This is the one for the entity that regulates the practice of architecture in your country. It could be Colegio de Arquitectos, Colegio de Ingenieros, it could be Ministerio de Obras Públicas or de Vivienda. Whoever issues that license, even if it's the Ministerio de Educación, it depends from country to country, it varies. Education secretary, the public works secretary, whatever it is, they need to send this form. And your university is going to have to send this one. Make sure that everything in this two forms is in English. And it won't hurt to ask them to copy you on that email so you're aware of the date that this is sent. So you can start counting the 60 days they have to get you back. That NCARB has to provide a response to you. Yeah, essentially I'm talking about the 60 days that you need to wait. And then we go into the experience and examination requirements. So once you become eligible, then you're in the same board than everyone else that went to architecture school here in the States. Once you become eligible, everyone has to go through the experience and examination. There's no way around it. Not even the American kids that went to college here in the States and that want to get licensed, they have to take the exams and pass the 6 ARE exams, and they have to report 3,760 experience hours. I'm going to talk a little bit about these two programs. Actually, I'm going to talk about the experience program, and then Mario is going to help me talk about the exams. NCARB allows applicants to complete experience and examination requirements both consecutively or simultaneously. This means that you can be reporting hours and taking the exams at the same time, or you can report your hours and then take the exams. You don't have to do one before the other. Whichever way you want, even if you're in school, there's ways to start examining, there's ways to start reporting your experience. I have a couple of interns here. I report hours. I'm a supervisor to report hours for them. And they were still in school when they started doing that. So the earlier, the better. The Architecture Experience Program is a tool that NCARB provides for you to be able to document your experience hours working under the license or working under the supervision of a licensed architect. A licensed architect in the states, 50 states, or the jurisdictions recognized by NCARB. There is a way of maybe NCARB giving you credit for some experience that you've earned in the past working for an architect license in other jurisdictions that are not NCARB. But that is only going to count for 50% of the credit. So very important that you look at the AXP guidelines in order to understand how that works, because most likely if you come into the States already as a licensed architect, the most likely scenario is that you're already going to have experience somewhere else. Hopefully under working under the supervision of a licensed architect in the States, but not necessarily. The most likely scenario is that you're going to have been working for somebody that's licensed somewhere else, or that you have experience working yourself as a licensed architect wherever you went to school at. So AXP is a very user-friendly program. There's even an app that helps you track your experience hours. You have to prove experience in 6 different fields, and you have to name a supervisor. The supervisor is someone that you're working under, that you report to, and somebody that you've been engaged in projects with currently or in the past. If this person holds a license and it's an active license, this person can submit, can validate hours of experience for you. You need the supervisor to be also to accept the supervising of your hours. So you have to previously talk to this person and tell them, hey, I'm engaging in this licensure process, and I will be reporting these hours under your supervision, for that person to be aware that he's going to be getting the emails or notifications from the app in order to approve those hours. I think there is a portfolio option which allows people to come in and qualify experience hours on their portfolio. But again, please go in and download the guidelines so you can go over it. And if you have any questions, our emails are at the end of this presentation, so we can tackle any concerns that you have regarding this. I'm gonna get Mario to talk about the architect registration exam. He's currently taking them, so no one better talk about that.
Yes, I will say that this is for many people pursuing to become an architect, will be the last step. But by looking at this requirement, says examination, the ARE or the architect registration examination is not just one test. It's a series of exams to evaluate your knowledge and your critical thinking in the profession. Right now, they are in the 5th edition, hence the ARE 5.0, and it's comprised of 6 exams, and they can go from the first one be practice management, which evaluate contracts or how to manage a firm or an office, or how to deal with owners and contractors. Then the second one is project management, which is the name itself depicts it as how to manage a project. Third one is programming and analysis. That is more focused about the pre-design of a project. Then we'll have the fourth one called PPD. I think it's project programming and design. The fifth one is PDD, project design and development. I think so. And the last one being CE, construction and evaluation. So
Right.
yes, and all of them can be from different lengths. So the first one, I think there are around 75 questions with 2 case studies. Then the PDD, PPD, I think there are 100 questions, and they are very tough. It takes a long time to go through the whole material, study, and taking them and pass them. I'm not sure, but I think the passing ratio is around 54%, meaning that there are only 54 people out of 100 that pass it the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong about the statistics, but meaning that they are very tough exams, and they are built to filter people that are not, I don't want to say it in this harsh way, but people that they don't understand well the content or the implications of being an architect practicing here in the US. So they do an incredible job at putting as much information on those exams and the questions for you to be evaluated in that knowledge. There are many resources to study for this. So if you just Google about ARE, you can find different websites that offer materials. They offer different tutorials, webinars, and any type of resources. And that's because when you are in this point of the license path, it means that you are among the rest of the people here in the US trying to become an architect. You can be together with people that went to school here in the US, and that just gives you more motivation to keep pushing, because it's a long path to take. And I think the average of someone to become an architect it's just the average, but I think it's 10 years from the moment from the education all the way when you're finished. So now about the ESL accommodation. These exams can be so tough that the wording can be very confusing. And for someone who comes from another country whose first language is not English, can be very daunting, intimidating. So NCARB started offer this accommodation while taking the test, which is ESL accommodation, English as a second language. This accommodation is built for people that need more help because their language is not English, or their first language at least. This doesn't mean that the test or the questions are going to be in your own language. It can be any language but English. That's not it. The exam is going to be the same one as everyone for the rest of the people. It's going to be in English, same questions, everything. But the ESL accommodation, what it offers is that it gives you 20% more of time to take the test, and you can bring with yourself a dictionary. Can be from your own language to English, and it's a very, very regular dictionary. I have taken the test with this accommodation. It's super helpful to have and more than enough time to take the test. Normally, it is suggested or recommended to spend 2 minutes per question. And that's it if you truly understand the language. And as I said before, this question might be very tricky. So in my case, sometimes it will take more time to go through the questions and see what they're actually asking for me to answer. So the accommodation of having more time or extra time is super helpful. I really encourage you, if you are in this path and you're already taking your test and you can ask for this accommodation, do it. It's super, it brings a lot of value to your career. How to apply for this is super easy. You can go to the NCARB website and download this application. You just fill it, you send it to NCARB via email, and you will receive approval about it. And in my case, it was really fast. It was probably after 1 day or two. About the accommodations of the time or the dictionary, you can choose one or the other or the two of them. I choose the two. And the only downside about this accommodation is that normally you can schedule your test through your NCARB record. But if you have this accommodation, every time you want to schedule a test, you will have to get in touch with PSI, which is the company that runs the test. You will have to call them or send an email directly to them, ask them to schedule your test. I don't know why they do this, but it's very annoying to wait for a response, see if the time and the place is available for me to go and test. Because before that, it was super easy to see the options in the website and just choose the one that is more convenient to me. So this is the ESL accommodation. I want to express that there are some jurisdictions, as far as I know, that they won't recognize an ARE test pass with this accommodation, with the ESL accommodation. So far, the only one I know is New York, but it's been a while since I saw it. So I will, before I require the accommodation, I will make sure that my jurisdiction is accepting test pass with the ESL accommodation. And it can be very simple just to check it through your Texas or state chapter that regulates that. That'll be it. I think so for the ESL and the ARE.
Thank you, Mario. There's a last step for licensure, and I'm gonna go over it real quick. It's meeting location-specific requirements. The state you're gonna get licensed is going to have additional requirements, even if it's not taking a course or taking another exam. California has another exam, for example. There might be as little as, I said, a background check or a form that you need to file, or a fee, most likely a fee that you need to pay. So you're gonna have to meet those extra jurisdictional requirements, and you're gonna have to ask NCARB to transmit your record to the jurisdiction where you would like to be licensed. So that might take a little bit of time. NCARB is always taking this type of requests. So my advice would be to stay on top and email the official that takes your request on a constant basis, or yeah, let's say a reminder on a weekly basis maybe won't hurt. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, in the case that there are supplemental exams, except for the case of California, these exams are typically quizzes about local laws and regulations. They're often given as spoken, they often given as open book and through a fillable PDF. California is the only one that makes you go to another testing center. I want to also go over a little bit of the notes and clarifications. Again, there is no national license to practice architecture in the United States. The 55 U.S. licensing boards regulate architecture and issue licenses specific to the jurisdiction. Effective English communication is highly recommended. Written and oral communication skills are defined as effective using the conventions of standard English as taught in English-speaking countries. There is not till this day a different language to go through this process. So I would strongly encourage for y'all to bring your English game up if you're going to engage in this licensure process, unless you're completely fluent and you already feel comfortable with that. If you have doubts, most likely you're going to need to bring up your English level. Every state has its own definition of what practicing architecture involves. So make sure that you get familiar with that. Sometimes the state board will require stricter requirements than NCARB. We just talked about that. Many schools offer architecture programs that have not been accredited by NAB. Graduates of these non-accredited programs will be limited in terms of where they can practice, as well as have additional requirements to earn an architecture license and NCARB certificate. So this means that even if your architecture school is in the States, please check if this is a NAB accredited program. Okay, just because it's here in the States doesn't matter that they are a NAB accredited program. Most of the architecture schools, reputable architecture schools, will be, but it won't hurt to check if you're in doubt. Possible mutual recognition arrangement like the Canberra Accord should be explored before engaging in certification process. There is things like the trinational agreement between Mexico, the United States, and Canada that might open a route to reciprocity of people that are licensed in Canada or licensed in Mexico. But I would encourage you to explore it and discuss it with the guys at NCARB before you engage in that process. Finally, please visit the NCARB guidelines. The certification guidelines are very intuitive and very well laid out manual to go through the process. Also be sure to reference the Foreign Architect Path to NCARB certification documentation checklist. That will give you a good idea of what you're going to need to start this process in terms of documents or credentials. And for general information about architectural licensure, please don't hesitate on contacting myself or Cesar. We're going to include Mario's email also in the email we're going to send out. I want to, before opening the Q&A time, I want to thank AIA Houston for the time. Our liaison, Jennifer Ward, she's always on task and doing a great job helping us as a committee in Latinos in Architecture. It's relatively a new committee for AIA Houston. We've been around for about 4 years now, and the subcommittee of licensing mentorship for foreign architects has been around about the same time, maybe if anything, it'll be a year less. We are trying to put this information out for everyone to access it. We are not an official source of information. The information in this presentation has been gathered from the actual official information sources like NCARB, NAB, ESA website. I strongly encourage everyone to visit this websites and get familiar with the process. It's sometimes can come across as an intricate process, but I think a huge step is that you're willing to take it on, and being in this presentation, watching this presentation has been a great first step. So if there are any questions, please, let's use the chat. Mario, Cesar, would you like to talk a little bit about things that we might have overlooked in the presentation, or something about your personal experience that might help? I think it's important that we have Cesar joining, because he is proof and living testimony of someone that went to school abroad, got licensed in the States, and is currently running his own practice, his own company very successfully, and he's been doing it for a while now. It's an inspiring story. Cesar,
Yeah.
do you mind sharing some of that?
Yeah, thank you, Luis. Yeah, well, I mean, I was just going to just add a little bit to the ESA that Mario was mentioning, since my path was different. I had to do the ESA. When I did it, just so you're aware, they were going to ask you to translate pretty much the whole courses, the description of the whole career, pretty much, which is, I don't know, in my case, probably was 300, 400 pages, which ESA says you need to do it, or it needs to be done by a certified translator, which can be very expensive. So I asked, and ESA sent them an email saying, hey, this is too expensive, I cannot afford it, can I do it myself? And they agreed to. So if you're going to take that path, just make sure that you don't have to spend that money. You can probably just ask, and they're probably going to accept that for you. You just need to be very careful and try to do it as accurate as possible. And as well, when you're doing you're converting your credits from your university, converting them to the USA credits, just try to make sure that you are covering all the bases. And if there's any class that you took back in your country and there's nowhere to actually put it in the USA program, try to find something similar that applies. It doesn't need to be the same, but just something similar, because the most credits that you're missing, they're going to make you go back and take those credits somehow through a community college or go back to college. In my case, the only credits that I was required to take was English, and it was 3 credits, and that's pretty much applies to everybody. Everybody that comes from another country is going to have to take those 3 credits, because English is our second language.
Thank you, Cesar. Adriana is asking, how long takes all the process? So the straight answer would be, it's split in 2. So the experience that you need to report on the AXP is 3,760 experience hours. So a work year in the US on an average company is 2,080 hours if you're engaged in a full-time position, and a 40-hour week work week, right? And you take out all the federal holidays, we're looking at 2,080. So it's roughly about a year and a half, maybe a year and a third of experience working on a full-time position under the supervision of a licensed architect. Now, this could be shortened if by the time you start reporting hours, you already have some hours gained. The ones that are from this point back 6 months can be reported by your supervisor and will be taken as 100%. And anything older than 6 months that you spent working under a licensed architect, the supervision of a licensed architect, can be taken into account on a 50% basis. So if you report that you work 200 hours under this licensed architect older than 6 months back, then you only get credit for 100. for half of the hour that you're reporting, right? So there you go, roughly a year and a half to report if you're starting from zero. Then the exam, taking 6 exams, like Mario said, and there are people that take more than 5 years to complete all of the exams. There are people that get and take up to 10 years taking the exam. That's why they got rid of what they used to call the rolling clock, which gave you 5 years to pass the 6 exams, starting when you pass the first one. But now that's gone. People tend to take longer, so they started cutting people some slack on that. But here's the thing: in average, people pass the exams in 2.4 years. On average, out of everyone that passed the 6 exams, it takes them 2.4 years. In my experience, I passed the 6 exams in a year, because that was the 1 year that I went all for it. I had the time made, and I scheduled the exams in a way that I could pass them in a year. And it honestly was a lot. It took my personal life took a toll, because I was then working full time. I'm still working full time, but I was already working full time then. I don't have any kids, or didn't have any kids back then. I have a 9-month-old, but back then I didn't have any kids. I was not married, so I had the spare time to do it. It's going to be more challenging if you're married. If you have kids, you're going to have to find that time, maybe late at night or early in the morning. You're going to find time to study, because you're going to have to study. There are no ARE for dummies, or any summaries that you might get, or audio shortcuts to the information. You're going to have to go through the information. You're going to have to study in order to pass these exams. There are people that plan it to pass in 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's going to depend all in the time that you have available. There's, I think, one guy that passed the 6 exams in 6 weeks, or so you hear something like things like that crazy, but those are very exceptional cases. I would encourage you to just plan it using reason as your north arrow, and give yourself a couple months in between taking any exams. Be ready to fail them. Take into account that most likely you're going to fail more than one, and that is 100% fine. Everyone that takes the exam thinks that failing is an option. You go into it thinking that you might or might not pass, and that happens. So if you do fail them, that's fine. Experience and examination, that might be a couple of years, and on average it's 2.5 years. Now, eligibility, how long does it take you to get that first step in, that first and second step in? It's going to depend on how quick or how soon can you make the architecture school that you went to send that form, and how quick and how soon can you get the institution that you currently hold a license from to send that verification form. If you're going if you're currently licensed somewhere else in another country, right? How quick can you get those forms filed and sent to NCARB? In my case, it was a couple of weeks, because unfortunately, the architecture school I went to was very open to take that form in, fill it up, and send it. And the institution that regulates the practice of architecture also has a good online system where you can communicate, and they're very responsive. But there are countries that doesn't work that way. There are countries that need somebody to come in and knock their door knock on their door and ask them to do that, their fees that you need to pay for that, and that might make it a little longer. But once you're able to get those institutions, being your university or the licensure regulation institution or entity, then once that's on NCARB's court, that is 60 days for them to give you an answer back. And it's typically an approval. Typically, they're going to tell you, go for it. You're good to go. You can start taking your exams. That is a huge variable. It will depend on how quick you can get these guys to send those 2 emails. ESA is going to take another 60 days once you get all the information in there, if you go on the ESA route. GBA design, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, GBA Dubaregazin.
Yes,
Yeah, is that good?
yes.
Okay, so you're asking if we can please send the recording of this video. This video is going to be on the AIA Houston YouTube channel, and we're going to send this presentation on a PDF format via email after the presentation to all the attendants. If you need anything, you can reach out to us via email. Anything additional. And Adriana asked, can I get that experience if I only have a student visa? Oh, okay. So very important. This is not immigration advising. It is a key element, though, for foreign architects to come in and get experience working under the license, under the supervision of a licensed architect. You're gonna have to be either on the States or working abroad as an outsource for a licensed architect, or maybe a licensed architect that's practicing abroad. You're gonna have to be working under their supervision. But if you're gonna be working here, most likely you're gonna need to have, you're gonna need to be doing that on a regular immigration status. NCARB doesn't mess with that. I mean, they're not gonna ask you for any immigration document. They're not supposed to. They assume that you're gaining this experience under a regular immigration status. So NCARB would not mess with it. The state board might. In the case of Texas, they're gonna ask you, like they asked me, for proof of legal permanence in the state. I had to go through fingerprinting or a background check, and I had to submit, and back then I was on a work visa, I had to submit my work visa credentials. So very important, if you're on a student visa, you might be engaged in an internship or a part-time job, earning this experience. 100% eligible, 100% eligible to report those hours. Those hours are 100% valid. Now, let's say you pass your exams and you complete your experience hours, and now you want your transcripts to be transmitted to whatever board you're going to be licensed in. They might require you an unexpired proof of legal status or residence in the state. There are states that don't require it. I'm not sure exactly which ones, but you can look at that in the NCARB webpage. Again, I'm not an immigration advisor. I might be wrong, but I'm talking to you in my experience. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Edwin is from Venezuela. He's graduated there. He says, I registered my degree at the ministry, but not at the Colegio de Arquitectos before coming to the United States. What documents could I need to show if I don't have that accreditation? So sounds like it's gonna be ESA. It sounds like you're gonna have to go through the ESA route. Verify if your architecture school is not part of the Canberra Accord. I don't know of any Venezuelan architecture schools that have that credential, but we were talking yesterday with an architect friend, also member of the subcommittee that's from Venezuela, that she had this hunch that their university might have been part of the Canberra Accord, but she was not 100% sure. She was going to make sure. So once you do that, and if you're not, if your university is part of the Canberra Accord or not, it doesn't really matter. You're going to go through ESA. You're going to have ESA evaluate your credentials. Once you get them translated, you would send them in together with the other ESA requirements. And they would kind of vouch in for the education requirement for you. Again, if you want to send me an email, I can connect you with this Venezuelan architect that just went through the process. And I know Venezuela's particular case is very challenging because the time institutions take to do anything takes forever. And most of the times it's also a lot of fees, like you have to send someone to pay this fee or that fee here and there. And she navigated that process already. She could help you out. So send me an email. My email's right there on the last slide that you're looking at, and I'll be glad to connect you with them. So Luis@mldeer.com. If anyone else has a question, or we can call it a day, I guess. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you all taking your lunch break to do this. I again want to thank AIA Houston and the Latinos in Architecture Committee for giving us the space. It's a great step that you all are taking by engaging in this presentation, and hope that this information has been helpful.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank you so much, Luis.